Let's go to Andy Puzder, who's the CEO of CKE. Andy, how are you today?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. Appreciate your time very much.
Glad to do it.
Tell us about, and actually, let me say this first. Really, thank you for coming here and for speaking out about California and what we can do to help you and the producers of this state, and therefore everyone in this state. And we need more producers like you speaking out, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tell us about CKE, headquartered right here in Southern California.
It is headquartered in Southern California. We're up in Carpinteria, which is just a little south of Santa Barbara, about 90 miles north of Los Angeles. And we did have a big to-do a month or so ago when Governor Rick Perry actually talked to me about trying to move the headquarters to Texas, which was kind of a surprise because I've been going to Sacramento and kind of yelling from the top of the mountain for the past couple of years that really we're not going to be able to develop restaurants in California anymore. And our restaurants are huge job creators. We create 25 jobs in the restaurants. We create jobs for the farmers that supply the food, the guys that deliver it, the advertisers, the people that do repairs and maintenance, wash the windows, fix the air conditioners. It's capital expenditures, construction when we build new restaurants, repair restaurants. So there's a lot of jobs created, a lot of money in the state. We have about 700 restaurants here. By the way, none of the restaurants we're not talking about closing or moving any restaurants out of the state. We've got 18,500 employees here. We love California. But the growth, what really creates jobs, the new restaurants, we're going to do 300 restaurants in Texas over the next 10 years. We're going to do maybe 30 in California just to kind of fill in where one closes or a lease expires. So all the job creation, all the growth is going to go to Texas, and that already left. And I've been trying to tell people for 2 years, look, we can't open restaurants in California because the permitting's too difficult. You don't let us run them once we open them. And if we manage to open one and we manage to run it and make a profit, you hit us with a big tax. In Texas, we don't get any of that, so we're going to start building there, and nobody listened. Now, that's like 300 restaurants, like 8,000 jobs in the restaurants, and, thousands more in these concentric circles around it. So the jobs have already kind of left, the new jobs, not the existing jobs, but the new jobs. And everybody got upset because we talked about moving 120 people from Carpinteria to Austin. And, we've got a lease till 2015, so I can't even think about it for a couple of years. But it really kind of shows you the focus is wrong. The focus is on trying to keep the headquarters here, which I guess is, politically important because it would look bad if Carl's Jr. left. We're a California company. But the jobs already left. What we should be talking about is how to get them back into the state, how to make it easier to open and run a business.
Okay, interesting. I love this because there's so many business owners listening right now across the state who share your frustration about all the hurdles that you guys have to jump. And I don't know if you heard me earlier, I talked about to be successful, there are hurdles that you have to jump. You have to work hard. You have to take big risks. You have to make big investments. You have to manage a lot of people. So, and you've jumped those. You're successful, and the company's successful. But there's all these unnecessary hurdles put in the way that after a while you're just like, this is really annoying. Why are you doing this? And I think I haven't been here too long, but I see business owners who are just like, well, that's just the way it is. That's the cost of doing business in California. But it doesn't have to be that way. Tell us about the permitting process here.
Well, let me say that people say that it's the cost of doing business, but I'll tell you what, the guys that are saying that just don't want to incur criticism. They're taking their business someplace else. Mm-hmm. You went through the census numbers, the growth in states that have no state income tax, where the regulations are lower, the states that have right-to-work acts. I mean, people may be saying one thing, but the businesses are leaving, and the unemployment rate shows that. Our permitting in this state, it's really absurd. In Texas, it takes about a month, and I'll use Texas as an example. There are other good states, Tennessee, Florida, a number of states that really are trying to be more business-friendly, but Texas is a good example. It takes a month and a half to get permits to open a restaurant in Texas, to start construction. The average in California is 8 months, and we have a number of examples where it's been as much as 2 years. I mean, it's a ridiculous process. Now, I will say, since we've been having these discussions and since the idea of moving the corporation's headquarters has come up, I got a call from Jerry Brown, I got a call from Gavin Newsom, both indicating a desire to help in this respect. The governor's office has been working with us to try and come up with ways that we can reduce permitting. But it's really a very difficult thing to do because it isn't just state permitting, it's federal, state, county, and city permitting. And they've all got their own requirements and their own rules, and you have to protect the arrowheads and the toads, and there's just so many things you have to do that it becomes very, very difficult, and you really do get frustrated.
Let's break it down a little bit more when you talk about how it only takes 40 days to permit in Texas, but here it could take up to 2 years. How does that really cost you money? Like break it down other than, well, it just takes longer. What does that really mean for you?
Well, when you commit to build a restaurant, you at some point you have to start either buy the land, and let's say you spend in California $1 million, $2 million for a good piece of corner property. It either sits vacant, so your money's not earning anything. That's an expense at that point. And until you get that restaurant open and start to generate revenue, you're just incurring expense with that site. So you could, rather than incurring it for a month and a half, you're incurring it in California for maybe up to 2 years. So it's a huge, huge expense. And the same with rent. At some point, the landlord may give you a period of time where you don't have to pay rent, but that expires fairly quickly. You want that site, you need to commit to pay the rent. So you could be paying rent on a site for a year and a half. You don't have a restaurant open.
Good point.
So these are huge expenses, and when you look to invest, every businessman looks for a return on his investment or her investment. You're looking for about 20% a year if you're going to risk the capital. And if you've got 2 years where you're sitting there just incurring expenses, your ability to generate the appropriate return is de minimis. So you look to other states. You look to where the business has gone. We've had our 2 record-setting sales weeks, first-week sales, over the past year and a half have both been in Texas. You normally want a restaurant. If you do $1 million a year in revenue in a restaurant, that's about $19,300 a week. We opened a restaurant in San Antonio 18 months ago, did $115,000 the first week. We opened one in Houston in January that did $117,000. Those are company records. We used to set all those records in California. We don't set them in California anymore. We now set them in Texas, where a lot of that population you mentioned has moved and where a lot of jobs are being created.
Talking with Andy Puzder, who is the CEO of CKE. They own Carl's Jr.'s and Hardee's and Red and Green Burrito. What do you say to people out there who think you're just greedy? You're a greedy businessman. You're too focused on the profit and not on helping people and helping your home state.
The fact of the matter is that we can make a profit any place. If I'm here talking about California, it's because I love California. I mean, we are Carl Karcher started this company with a hot dog cart in 1941. There are entrepreneurial values here. Our general managers learn those values in other states. In this state, let's take a general manager. 83% of our general managers are minorities and about 63% are women. That's about 700 people in the state.
Wow.
We pay them very well, $50,000 to $60,000 a year, plus a bonus based on their performance, plus substantial benefits. That's a good job. And these people, we're lucky if they have high school educations. These are not MIT graduates. These are people that were lacking in opportunities and found an opportunity in this industry. They run $1.4 million revenue businesses in $1.2 million facilities. They have 25 employees that report directly to them. They have to deal with vendors and the public, and they have profit and loss statement, P&L responsibility. It's like an MBA course. We pay them to run those restaurants like they own them. I used to be Carl Karcher's lawyer. We would visit restaurants. He would pick up cigarette butts in the parking lot. If we were in the dining room and it was busy, we'd bust tables. If the cook didn't show up, Carl would go and cook. And that's what you do if you manage a restaurant. Well, in California, you're not allowed to do that. You can only work 50% of your time in non-managerial tasks to be qualified as a manager. So if you're a manager and you decide you want to work the register or the cook didn't show up and you need to work where the cook, you can't do that. If you do that, we have to pay you overtime. We can't afford to pay you overtime and keep our prices where they are for our consumers. If we allow people to do those tasks, with 700 general managers in the state, once in a while you get one that doesn't perform or gets terminated for stealing. They find one of these plaintiffs, class action attorneys, and we end up, every retail business in this state of any size has been sued because the general manager goes and claims, you know what, I worked more than 50% of my time in non-managerial tasks, and they let me. Well, we've paid out $20 million over the past 8 years in those kinds of suits.
What?
Over 65% has gone to the lawyers.
Hold on. Is that just in California or is that across the country?
Oh, no, this is a California thing. The federal rule is a subjective test. They look and see, are you really a manager?
Okay.
And if you're a manager, you get to manage. You get to run the business like you owned it, like you're paid to do. Not here. So everybody that's of any substance, of any retail substance in this state, has had to take their general managers who worked their butts off to become management employees. We've had to turn them into hourly employees so that they can do their jobs, which may involve doing more than half their time in non-managerial tasks. That subjects them to two things. One is, in most of the country, you have a 40-hour week. requirement. If you work more than 40 hours a week, you get overtime. In California, it's 8 hours a day. You work 9 hours on one day, you get an hour of overtime. So general managers now have to work 8 hours a day. If a guy says, I want to work 10 hours on Friday because it's busy and 9 hours, or 6 hours on Monday because it's not as busy, well, you can't do that, because then we're back to getting sued and allowing you to work overtime. We've actually had to fire general managers who have worked overtime and not claimed the hours. Because if I allow them to do that, we end up with class action lawsuits. I haven't cleared this with our lawyers, but what I want to tell them is if they go to Texas, we'll hire them. At least there they can do their jobs. And then you've got rest breaks. You've probably been in a restaurant and saw people sitting, with uniforms on, sitting watching while you're waiting in line trying to get your lunch or trying to get something, trying to get some quick service in a quick service restaurant. Well, the reason they're sitting there is they're on mandatory rest breaks, which, again, don't exist in most other states. So you've got a general manager who's sitting and watching when 60 people pull up from the local retirement home and want burgers at 3:30 in the afternoon. If his restaurant's falling apart around his ears, he's got to sit there and watch it. So what we're teaching people in California, this is the real problem, to get back to answering your question now that I've gone through this. This isn't about us making more money. This is about instilling entrepreneurial values in people, that if you work harder, you work smarter, you work better, you work longer, you can be more successful. That's what this country is all about. What we're teaching them in California is, no, there's a level. You can't do more than this in non-managerial tasks. You can't work more hours than this in a day. You can't. You have to take breaks, even if your business requires that you not take them. Even if you're driving a Brinks truck with money in the back, if it's your mandatory rest time, you have to pull off to the side of the road and take a rest. Do you think the drivers really want to do that? I mean, this is the laws in this state have become so oppressive that they're really diverting the entrepreneurial spirit. We're teaching people that they can't work harder, longer, and smarter, that they have to work the way the state tells them to work. If you go to any major corporation in this state, and I'll bet there are one or two people there that got their entrepreneurial experience initially in a McDonald's, a Burger King, an In-N-Out, a Carl's Jr., one of the quick service chains that operate in this state. We are suppressing and killing that spirit. There are states where they're not doing that, and those states will grow, and our state will not unless we fix that. All I'm trying to do is get us to fix it. We built 20% of the quick service restaurants in this state over the past 5.5 years. I'd like to keep that number up. I'd like to build more restaurants here. I want to work with legislators and try and get these rules to where businesses can survive and prosper, bring prosperity to the state, create jobs. If that's being a greedy businessman, then I'm a greedy businessman.
I think that might be the greatest answer to a question I've ever asked on the Mike Slater Show. Okay, here's the $1 million question. Again, we're talking with Andy Puzder, who's the CEO of CKE, which is Hardee's and Carl's Jr. There's business owners across the state standing up and cheering at what you're saying right now. What can we all, whether you're a business owner or just a producer of society in general, who wants to one day be a business owner and wants to be successful and wants to work hard, what can we do to make our voice be heard and represent the job creators like yourself?
I think we need to join people from both sides of the aisle in this discussion. There's, I speak to a lot of groups. I speak to the Chamber of Commerce. I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce in Lakewood yesterday. We need to engage not only Republicans but also Democrats in this conversation. And I will say, since this news hit about us moving our headquarters, and again, that's really kind of a red herring. Again, it's 120 employees versus the over 8,000 that are already going to be created in another state. But since we've had that, I have gotten calls, as I said, from the governor, the lieutenant governor, and legislators on both sides of the aisle. We need to encourage people to understand that this isn't about greed. That this isn't about companies oppressing workers. We're not putting women in sweatshops or kids in coal mines. This is about trying to make it so businesses can survive and prosper in this state. People are suffering because they don't have jobs. They're not sure of their futures. They're not sure of their children's futures. We can change that. American businessmen, California businessmen, and entrepreneurs can change that. But to do it, we don't need to be subsidized. We don't need to be regulated. We don't need to be stimulated. We need to be left alone. And if you leave us alone, we can fix the problems. And if people in government would understand that and step back a little, I think we'd see this state take off and be the golden state once again.
Bam. What you just heard is the voice of a producer of California. Wonderful. I love it. I know what you're doing. As you just said, it's not political. It's both sides of the aisle. It's beyond that. But again, thank you for speaking out. I know there's a lot of business owners who would be scared to do that for one reason or another. So we're behind you. Andy Puzder, CEO of CKE Hardee's and Carl's Jr. Andy, let's stay in touch and thank you for what you're doing and keep speaking out.
Thanks, Mike. It's my pleasure.